Hey, 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 what's up, y'all? Am I coming through? Let's see. Yeah, coming through, okay? What's up, what's up? 2:35 a.m., 37% waning crescent, looking gorgeous. That's a major earth shine, dark side tonight. At the very top, Mare Crisium. And then Mare Fecunditatis to the left of that, to the right of that. Then, of course, Sea of Serenity, Sea of Tranquility, also visible. A little star up to the left of the moon. I don't think that's Aldebaran, but that is something big. Let's see. Where is it? Okay. Just pulling up Stellarium right here. Alright, that's a star called 44 Gem, I guess Gemini, HIP 34182. Starting at the top, Happy Honey, what's going on? Around Borax, what's happening? Diego, Starlight Spectrum, Dr. Michael Miller, what's happening, man? And what's happening, Ryan in North Carolina? Hope y'all are feeling alright. I think this is probably my last stream on this moon cycle. Tomorrow's gonna be a busy day, so I don't know if I'm gonna stay up till this late, but we'll see. I'm glad I got this one. I've been waiting. I always like these phases. You've heard me talk about it. It just gets the best types of kind of relief on a lot of the cool features. So let me just adjust this and we can look at a few. Sinus Iridum is a highlight. Of course, Copernicus right under the Terminator line, leading into Kepler and Aristarchus. You got Grimaldi at the bottom. At the right, you've got a few other interesting regions called, I actually labeled a few of them Pallas Epidemiarum. Epidemiarum. I love this. So some new regions. I'm gonna try and input it in a little bit when I zoom in. Also, M42 is climbing up pretty high, but it's at the other side of the window, so I might have to scooch the scope over, take a quick look. But it's very clear, and there's astronomy to do. What's going on, Josh Carrera? Thank you. Alright, let's play some tunes and get into this. Oh, sorry, I'm just reading this. Starlight says, I'm phenomenal right now, responding to my question, how are you? Says, I won't believe I was listening to your Bandcamp and saw a shooting star. That's awesome. I love all the sweet comments about the music. It's really inspiring. So thank you. I haven't seen a shooting star in a while, maybe a couple of months at least. It's always wonderful. What's happening, Sully's girl? Also, shout outs to my peeps at the Electric View, Neil and Ramon, and Greg J was on today, and of course Rick, Shockwave Rick, and many others, Michael. And yeah, go give the Electric View a like or a listen first, and then a like. So I'm definitely a bit beat, you can hear it in my voice, but I'm excited because seeing skies like this makes me passionate and interested and ready to go at it. So Schiller and your Mare Humorum is looking really good too. Let me just do a quick zoom in at some of these regions while I talk about it. Alright, so you're asking where Tycho is. Tycho is right around this region. It's already in shadow under the Terminator, like right above it. Saw it last night getting occulted. But let's zoom in here for a moment and I'll show you these other regions. Alright, so this really elongated crater is very interesting. This is one of the few ones that we can see from Earth that's extremely extended, called Schiller crater. And this region I want to show you called Palus Epidemiarum. I have it written out, and that's right over here. Getting that same sort of atmospheric turbulence per usual, but that's a new place that I have yet to mention. So Palus Epidemiarum, definitely the most complex one. Happy Honey says Electric View was good today. Talked about the ancient sky. Yep, Greg J did good on his live show. I didn't get to see that. I was a little bit busy, but I'm gonna definitely check it back out. He puts out so much content. I have a lot to catch up with, but so good today. It was a lot of fun. And Genghis, what's happening? Okay. What other region? There's Shiner crater right here, the one that's half in shadow. And there's another one that looks very cool. I want to see what happens if I raise the filter a bit. I feel like I gotta be quick tonight with the views and the news. What is this? I think it's Blankeness and Shiner to the left. Alright, it's a bit bright. Let's take a look at Sinus Iridum. Actually, I'm going to switch up the lens real quick, get closer. Man, I want to do too many things at once. Maybe I should do a shot of M42 before it gets too high up. I think that's what I'll do with the wide lens, and then I'll switch back to the moon. The moon's still kind of rising anyway. So, first quick shot of the moon, dark side, and then I'm going to move the scope, get a shot of M42, and we'll enjoy that for a second. seeing and somebody somewhere. What's going on? Welcome, welcome. Just playing with the scope and I'll be back on chat in a couple. Much peace and much love, yo. 2:46 a.m. Just getting started. Race to space.
Give you love and a common peace. Feel your pain cause it's part of me. Know you really think when your body's built. I'm amazed by the words and the lips. Feel your name and a common peace. It's insane that you're part of me. Never lifts from the highest. It's as if everybody is the same body. Insane that you want for relief. Maybe one day you'll see me. I ain't made it the will of somebody someday, but we all get the slip. Here in space now we come in peace. Seeing things that you cannot believe. Ready to trip on the drift, we can lift to do, cause I love to give you. We are the space race, we are the moonball, we are the franchise, we are the sequel, made of the ether. How are we still here for your place along the space race? On a beach outside of heaven, across the street from where I grew up after bomb and raised. Somehow we lived, somehow we died, somehow we came back to the city side and drive through civilized genocide. We had to fight with your armies, held down from the Western forces. Had no love for the harmony, bear no hate for the Western forces. When you speak out, when you sing loud, everybody wanna tear you down. But come on, come on, come on, step to me. I got nothing but love to give you. We are the space race, we are the moonlight, we are the franchise, we are the sequel, made of the ether. How are we still here? Looking for your place along the space race. Nebula, that's some crazy stuff that just popped up. I couldn't believe how large it looked and so bright. This is with the focal reducer, so f6.3 on the 11 with the Sony a6 V turned up max. And you can really see some crazy cloudage inside M42. The very core you got the trapezium cluster, and to the left you got the Horsehead Nebula, but it's really not visible as much as it could be. It's crazy how this is such a visible target, an easy target, so to speak, but just magical. Welcome to everybody joining. Happy to have you on the late stream, or early, whichever it is for you. What up, True Man? can I do? I threw a line out for you. What else can I do? I lay my heart out for you. What else can I do? I left the light on for you. What else can I do? Oh, sweetness, it's so easy, let's jam it. Come on, spark that flame. Oh, so healing, fall back, beat it, the driving. But do they run and cut your feelings? It's so meaning to drowning. And if you leave it on the table, you know they'll tell you there's no way to go. But here's what we could. What else can I do? I laid the light on for you. What else can I do? I pour my heart out for you. What else can I do?
So, I mean, come on. Also, like, if you followed Alex Jones, like, back in 2001, it was pretty funny to be about what he was talking about with Bohemian Grove and all that stuff, but nowadays it's, like, straight up ridiculous. It's worse than cable news. I don't know, it's just another reason that FE is just, like, just a dark place. And, anyway, no judgment, not at 3 in the morning. But I just wanted to say that this Nebula shot is pretty unbelievable. I gotta say I've taken a bunch of shots, but really seeing deep into the cluster on the right-hand side next to the trapezium is nuts. Especially 11 inches, 11-inch scope doing wide field is crazy because you get a lot more magnification. Of course, typically with a 4-inch or 6-inch piece, you get like a lot wider view and maybe more nebulosity. But not this type of detail on the cloud. So plasma, dusty plasma right in front of us, y'all. Simple stuff. The question is, what's the next cool thing after Flat Earth? We're already here, man. 5 years now I've been going on Electric Universe because it seems like that's about where it starts and begins with the primal force of electricity. You can take any number of phenomenon like weather, geology, history, philosophy, metaphysics, astrology, rocket propulsion, time travel, anti-grav, you name it, from plasma cosmology and thereabouts. But you get muddied up with flat Earth and aliens and concave Earth and politics and trutherism. It's just a complete like spiral into nowhereness. So of course I'm sitting here evangelizing the Electric Universe, so I'm none better. But at least it inspires me to write and share content, and I think that's what's important. Yeah. And also, just a quick note, what's up, FE dude? But I gotta say another time that just because NASA sucks doesn't make geometry not exist in a certain way. So you can, there's one thing to mistrust agencies, and there's a whole other thing to completely look at something that makes sense, which is the spherosity and the hexagonal nature of electricity and geometry and physics. And yeah, it doesn't really mean that government agencies aren't corrupt, but I don't think one and the same are necessary. Do I have a magnetic field visualizer yet, like Ken Wheeler showed how to build? No, I don't really need it. Like, honestly, I know this sounds probably arrogant, but I don't need any more convincing that the world is the way it is, I do this show now for fun and for kind of figuring out how plasma cosmology and electric universe ties to space visuals. And of course I'll talk about anything, but basically like I kind of don't need any more proof really that electricity is the primal force, geometry and information and structure is fractal. Even on the show that I'm at with Electric View guys, like I feel like I'm in a place where I think about consciousness in a way that is also fractal and geometric. And self-awareness is probably in and of itself something that every particle and dot and creature at any size, magnitude experiences. So anyway, I'm rushing through because I want to switch over to the moon. But man, it is looking gorgeous, this nebula. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah, also, you know, like, look, Eric Dollard is actually pretty genius. Everybody you gotta take with a grain of salt, of course. You gotta just take everything and think about it and test it against other thoughts that you've had and talk to people about it. I definitely am all about like asking questions and being skeptical, you know, if you followed me. But, you know, it's throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I know they've said it a bunch on Thunderbolts, but I've always thought that like, in order, you know, like lies are definitely packaged in a whole bunch of truth, you know, so there are missions in space for sure. There are things that you can't fake. But at the same time, do we know everything that's going on in space? Hell no. Like, I don't think we know like 10% of what's really going on. But it doesn't negate the fact that there are rocket engineers and people who know how to build spacecraft. You know, at least that's what I think is going on. It's like, you know, we have vehicles that go 200 miles an hour, but you know there are vehicles that go 600 miles an hour, but we don't have access to that necessarily. All right, back to the moon, and of course there are mosquitoes. I knew it. All right, track time. Yo, Z-Proxy, but you got Dwayne Kellum, who basically has done the best work on that, and he's gonna put out his documentary. If he thinks it's not flat, are you guys gonna believe Dwayne Kellum or not? I'm just saying it frankly, because like I've watched all his videos, and that is the best he can really do. At that altitude, it seems like balloons basically explode at whatever type of balloon you really have because of the density of the atmosphere and likely electrostatic charge and a number of things that happen at that region. But yeah, if he says it's flat, then I don't know. But somebody's doing that work, so more so there's I don't know, at what point do you call it quits and do you move on to something that actually yields results, is my question. Anyway, respectfully, of course. Back at the moon, I'm going to adjust some focus here because I moved the scope, and we're going to zoom into some cool features. Got a Sinus Iridum I want to take a look at.
It's alright.
Alright, so it seems like there's some atmospheric distortion going on, but I want to do some zoomage regardless because the views are good. I know the discussion went a little flat for a moment, but I'm getting off it, and we're going to talk about some lunar geometry. Yo, forgive me if I've missed a bunch of the chat. I'm just going to keep moving because it's late and I want to get a bunch of this in. So forgive me tonight. I'm just going to move through. All right. So I have these regions mapped out that I want to talk about. Mare Humorum. All right. Let me see if I can't set this up real quick. So this place up here called Rima Draper. A lot of these are kind of, I feel like I've seen them before, but I really haven't shared them much. So I tried to get them ready tonight. So Rima Draper, and then there, to the right of Kepler, there's this Mare Insularum. Was the pun intended? No, well, no it wasn't, but sometimes it's nice to have one and not call it out. But no. Alright, Mare Insularum right here. And alright, Oceanus Procellarum. I'm just taking a moment to get these, and then we'll zoom. Yo, what's up, Duplicate? How's it going? I mean, I meant it literally, like, and the pun happened to go the other way, but anyway. So those are some regions. Mare Humorum, really, Mare Insularum are new. Alright, that's, yeah, a little sloppy tonight, y'all. Forgive. Forgive. Alright, so let's do some zoomed in shots. What I want to look at first, let's take a look at Sinus Iridum while that's going under. And also a quick shot of Copernicus, which is almost completely covered. And we're going to have to wait for the atmospherics to chill as well. Oh no, it's fine, Starlight. It's cool. Look, the simple answer about why space is basically so, like, quote unquote faked is because, you know, you could argue that there are national security reasons for a ton of it, and who are we as civilians to really decide what is accessible and what's not accessible, even though I know everybody wants to know, but can you really know these things? I don't think it's very easy, so it's a lot of speculation ultimately. I feel like it's fun for a while, but if you don't do anything else besides speculate, it can really turn into just a lot of time spent and not a lot produced, at least for me. I mentioned it a bit on the Electric View today. I feel like there's a bit of a kind of tendency to talk about things negatively, but then to never provide any alternative. But I feel like even making a video and talking about things is something. Get a discussion going. Yo, what up, what up? Eat all your fish. You made it. I'm just hanging out here near Sinus Iridum waiting for it to clear up because it's really nice detail. It shall appear. Happy Honey says, good point to me, thank you, and we probably shouldn't know even though we want to. I just enjoy the mystery, it's fun, but Electric Universe trumps it all, more primal. It's true, like, the kind of nuance to Electric Universe, or even the idea of studying plasma cosmology, is just that you're given the tools again. So you can go off on your own and use reasoning and logic to kind of deduce facts about the universe, as opposed to relying on YouTube. Ultimately, that's part of why it's very exciting for me, is because if YouTube somehow stopped existing tomorrow, a telescope is basically analog. And understanding the moon, you can draw stuff, essentially observing and enjoying space and music is ultimately a fully analog experience, and you can do it with people in real life without using computers or technology at all. So it's not tainted in that way for me. I feel like this is such a great experience to be able to share it with everybody, but yeah, all these other conspiracies feel like you need to keep. They only are alive because they exist on these social platforms. Otherwise, you know, and that means in a way they're all kind of introduced as brands, as marketing. Even Electric Universe is a marketing thing. However, it's one of the more logical ones, and it does offer, you know, reasonable solutions. But it's really not the be-all, end-all of all things. It's more that the understanding of electricity being the primal force of the universe is much more fundamental. It's really outside of Thunderbolts Project or any of the people associated with it. It's more of a fundamental principle of the universe instead of relying on ad hoc theorems and made-up concepts that really are there to spookify and confuse people. Electricity is what we can see, what we are. We know it well, and think that that's part of what creates the universe fundamentally is actually very empowering. Also, pun not, I never really intend that pun. It always happens to be that case, but empowerment through gnosis is real. Oh, also, eat all your fish, happy birthday. Shout outs to you. Hope you had a great one, or having the start to a great one. What's happening, Matthew Fields? And I also want to make sure I'm not in any way denigrating the fine folks at Thunderbolts Project, and I'm just saying that, like, they're not, I don't want to say they're marketing in terms of trying to sell. I need to rephrase that because I didn't mean to throw any shade at all. Like, these guys are like some of the most brilliant people and forward-thinking people that have brought us this information, so I want to qualify that. But at the same time, like, information on YouTube should still be taken with a grain of salt, no matter what it is, no matter how correct and holistic and honest it seems. It's just a platform that's given to you by a government agency, and you should trust your own senses. That's all I want to say. And what's up, Fantasy Ecstasy? How's it going? Glaucoma says, do you believe we landed on the moon? You know, I've moved away from talking about that because it's very hard to tell, but it seems like there is a way to land on the moon. Maybe it wasn't the way we saw it on television, but there seems to be a way. Reluctantly, I say that, but it's true. But whether those videos are the truth is still up for grabs. They look very suspicious, and of course the astronauts' interviews look suspicious, but it seems like Apollo 16 telescope shots from the moon are pretty realistic. And yeah, I would guess that there's probably a way to do it with some sort of technology that we're unaware of, or an amount of money that we're unaware of. But yeah, I don't think that the current space program is doing that hot, but and the leadership and the funding. So I don't know. That's a whole deep kettle of fish. Awesome, eat all your fish. It was the 22nd yesterday, last day of Virgo. Hell yeah. I feel like the energy cracked today just before the equinox. Feels like the chokehold on Earth has been relinquished momentarily. Photoshop, you know, I gotta say, not to go into a whole other thing, is that, you know, it is and it isn't, you know. It's easy to talk about Photoshop when you're not proficient at Photoshop. It's the same as talking about photography being faked when you're not a photographer. And the same with, like, talking heads giving reports about physics when they know nothing about physics. I think it's really, really important to be nuanced and detailed about writing off everything as faked when, you know, there are certain things that can be faked and there are certain things that cannot be faked, no matter how good they are, because the human eye is very discerning, and you can tell. So go take a look. There are like 10,000 photos from the Apollo missions on Flickr. I've done the work like 3 times over going through all of them, and it's very, very hard to say they were faked. even though you deep down you really want to continue that. No, deep down it really seems like something else is going on. There's something more to the moon story. I mean, of course, we haven't been back in so long, and other countries can't replicate it. There are a lot of good questions, but in terms of having gone at a certain period when they said they did, it seems like it's a very, very difficult thing to. Now let me clarify. It's not a very difficult thing to fake, like a Kubrick style Apollo 11 Capricorn 1 style thing. Definitely, that's not hard to fake, or nor is it. Like, I think it's ridiculous when people are like, no, it's easier to go to the moon than it is to fake it in a studio. That's total horse shit. It's definitely easier to fake it in a studio. However, I still think that with certain technologies, you could probably go to the moon. Does that make sense? So it's more of a nuanced thing. Anyway, here at Schiller Crater. Also, I'm talking about this at like 3 in the morning, just completely going off on my rants. Going off. Gotta keep some tunes going in the background. Yeah, there's wanting to believe, and then there's completely never wanting to believe, but that actually doesn't go anywhere either. I gotta say, not to be pointed, but you can stay in a state of constantly disbelieving everything and never really move forward on anything. So it's about discernation. It's not about completely obliterating everything from your life because one thing sucked. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, Starlight just made a great point. And also, what's going on, Super Must See? Chris, the wife fakes a lot, it's pretty funny. Starlight says, I will never understand why we can't visit an object that is literally right in front of us. So, I mean, yeah, there's some valid questions, like why can't we get the moon missions happening? It doesn't seem like things have moved forward in that particular industry vertical, considering like everything else on Earth has moved forward by leaps and bounds. And there are all these different reasons, I've talked about it before, but like lots of lame reasons about, oh, we were military posturing, and I'm like, but it's still a miraculous achievement. No other country did it. You watch these ridiculous videos on Vox and not Reverb, on like, just popular science articles, and the guy's like really pompous, and he's like, well, there was a space race, and then the Russians were trying to get there first, but look, they really sucked, and the Americans did it, and that's it. Everybody stopped because the Americans did it. And I'm like, that's not a reason. That's just saying... that's like water is wet. There's a lot of water is wet going on. So for me, I think the granularity is missing from moon debates and moon discussion. If you listen to anything pop sci related when it comes to the moon, there's always like 10 years ago, blah 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 happened, and now we're finally figuring out that maybe there's could be water maybe on the moon, that maybe might be there. Lots of maybes and coulda, wouldas. That doesn't seem like the type of same corporation that was able to actually drive a rover and put a telescope on the moon. Same agency is saying like, can't do it. Can't even get people into low Earth orbit. So there's definitely room for questioning that. Or in private industry has been going to the moon for a long time. That's the other easy answer, is that we can't keep track of every rocket that's going on. Oh, I was going to label a couple more like ridiculous excuses. The Russians would have told on us. Bullshit. The Russians would have definitely not told anything on anybody. Let's see. Other agencies tracked us going to the moon and back Also complete horseshit. All those other agencies are also NASA, basically. Still, I think they did it, but I think that all the reasons that no other country has done it are very, very suspect. Solly's Girl says, reason no go back, keep Nova event secret. Well, the Nova event doesn't seem to be secret. Literally every video, every movie, every book is about catastrophism and how the world is about to end, literally any day now. In fact, it's hit such a saturation that people are so bored with the apocalyptic scenarios that they've had to change the entire kind of MO on how to write a story, because now, like, apocalypse is not enough. You have to survive the apocalypse and then live after. So the hero's journey has now been rewritten to include surviving the apocalypse, because everybody is so keen on it. So I don't know, like, go back to Knowing or Deep Impact, or I don't know, a whole bunch of other movies that we're absolutely sure we were going to die by some impact or solar event. Just a matter of time, right? Z-Proxy says, didn't officially China, Israel, and India land on the moon recently? So Bereshet, the Israeli one, crashed into the moon, India crashed into the moon, and then China basically has a couple of rovers up there, but the photos are just the absolutely most outrageously low resolution, non-public types of programs. Like, if you really try and do some research on other moon missions, even old moon missions, and try and find the actual photos, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack at this point. Look up like Lunicode, original moon mission photos, like the Russian stuff, or look up Russian lunar program on YouTube or Google that's not on dark web, and like see if you can find anything about the Russian program, or what they think now about the lunar program in Russia or China or India for that matter. Watch the Indian Chandrayaan 2 briefings and tell me that seems like an agency that's actually launched anything into space. Without, I just feel like the characters that they put to talk about these things are people who sound like they know nothing about what they're doing. It's the same thing with the NASA people. You talk about these people, they can't name just anything about the science, anything about the craft. It's just a bunch of rhetoric, ultimately. Yo, what's going on, Chow Yun Cat? Exactly, Chow Yun Cat pulls up the note. He says, we don't have the technology to go back to the moon anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again. You know, like, you say that, and then people are like, oh, you damn flat hard conspiracy nut crackpots. Why do you think that NASA is full of shit? Well, because they say dumb shit like that all the time. Like, all the time. That is some dumb shit, I gotta say. I can't imagine, like, your press agent would want you to say something like that. Yep, most astounding achievement in all of mankind. We destroyed all the records of it and all the technology, and no other country can ever reproduce it, nor can we. Don't ask any more questions. Nothing to see here, Officer Barbrady. I mean, come on. I don't know what else to say, but it's pretty absurd. But, you know, like, it also seems like the end of a nightmare, where, you know, once the sun goes supernova, we'll just wake up from this crazy illusion, all being the same person in some laboratory somewhere. I'm like, whew, damn glad that was over. The pictures from Hubble. Well, pictures from Hubble, I mean, you know, I've talked about it before. Of course, there's the null zone at about 200 miles up, 250 kilometers. No, 200 miles, is it? It's about 150 miles. About 250 kilometers is like what I think is probably a null zone between two magnetic layers, where you can float a whole ton of orbital things. That's where all the satellites, ISS, Hubble, and in this area you probably have excellent viewing. So I think all the Hubble shots are real. I've seen like the best astro imagers on Earth. Their pictures, you know, there are some pictures that are definitely better than Hubble, and there are pictures that you can't get unless you have a telescope up there. Although I do admit that there are telescopes that we've probably have never seen and never seen the quality of. Like try and look up photos from the large binocular telescope or Keck or Subaru. Anything updated, you can't really find it. Yeah, I feel you. I need tunes too. Back to the tunes. I'm sitting here typing when I could just talk. Yeah, so I think a couple of things are being mixed up a little bit. So, as far as I understand, there are lots of references to the fact that Jove or Zeus is originally named Nibiru. There are a lot of links I could provide, but I would just look that up. Look up Jupiter, Destroyer, Nibiru, and you'll get some context. And then the other thing is this, Happy Honey says, how do we account for the every 25,000 years orbital re-entry claims about Nibiru? I think it's being confused with the 26,000 year cycle, which doesn't really, I think that's just being tied to this fact that there's this elliptical orbit of some sort of planet that nobody can see. Is it possible? Yes, it might be possible. I've heard Eugene Bagachov talk about the fact that there might be objects on a very long, on a highly elliptical orbit that we cannot make out. However, to me it seems like conflating mythos and mythic archetypes with different conspiracies and different people kind of muddying it up. So I would look more into the 26,000 year cycle epoch of Earth and how that really, maybe that's something to do with the polar alignment. I mean, I know that the guys talk about it being, in the last 12,000 to 2,000 years, but perhaps there was a different type of planetary alignment, or Earth was in a different part of space, or smaller, or maybe Saturn hadn't turned into a brown dwarf yet. There are a lot of different stories about that, but maybe 26,000 years ago, maybe that's when the polar configuration began. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that. So just getting a little bit of Earth shine. So maybe it's just that that we believe, or that maybe there is a catastrophe every 26,000 years, but maybe it's just a cycle of Earth going through a modulation. Potentially catastrophe is not part of the actual cycle. Maybe it's just that Earth goes through an electrical cycle, and it just so happened that there was catastrophe 10,000 years ago. I'm not of the mindset that it absolutely mandates the fact that we go through these catastrophes. Now, does that mean the universe isn't a very dangerous place, potentially? It really is, actually. So one doesn't negate the other. I think we could live maybe for another 1,000,000 years and not have another catastrophe, or it could happen tonight. We don't know. I don't think anybody's going to have enough wherewithal to tell us or want to tell humanity at large. If a micronova event happened, it would probably just happen. Actually, I do want to make a point about something. Maybe I've said it before, but I just want to talk about the fact that I know it's going to sound super judgmental, but it's not really. It's just I'm a psychological thing that I notice about conspiracy and about the entire ethos online or in truther circles is that, and I'm still one of those people, but it's just that I've moved away from this idea that people who are put in place to lie to you, there's this notion that we're surprised by that, or that I used to be for some reason. I was like, why does NASA lie to us? Or why does this governor lie to you? Or why does the blah, blah, blah do that? But once you realize that they're absolutely meant to do that, like there is no questioning why we don't get photos from large telescopes. I question it. I just say it out loud for the fun of it, but I know exactly why we don't get the photos. Like we're not owed those photos. We don't pay for them necessarily. It's the same thing with space missions. It's the same thing with SpaceX. It's the same thing with politics. Like these things are not things that actually, I mean, we may pay for it with our lives and our, you know, like our suffering, but ultimately, like to expect somebody who's there to control you to stop trying to control you by just being angry at them seems to not work. As you know, like Happy Honey says, haha, why would they lie? It's their job, exactly. It's their literal job is to totally lie to you and confuse you and obfuscate the truth. And so there's a ton of rhetoric online in every conspiracy circle, even on my channel, you know, up to the point where like last year or the year before, I was just like, man, this is completely ridiculous to sit here and expect these people to do things that they're not meant to do, nor will they ever do. Like, that's not true, actually. Like, if Keck Observatory were taken over by some philanthropist and he's like, well, I'm just going to show people what it looks like with a 200-inch telescope every night and stream, you know, make a show. Like, that could happen. I don't want to say it could never happen. Z-Proxy says, sounds like Stockholm Syndrome ode. Like, I know, like, everybody has kind of gets very testy about being a sucker. Like, no one wants to be a sucker, but you're not a sucker. I think actually that's not true. We're all suckers ultimately, because you do give in to the ritual and to the lie and to the play. Like, no one can really be outside of it necessarily, but at the same time, because you're one and the same with it, you can just allow it to be what it is, which is, you know, you wanna see the stars, get a telescope and see the stars. Like, stop waiting for NASA to do things. You wanna see what it looks like at 100,000 feet, you know, build the balloon and get that thing going and make it happen. Let's see. So that's another thing. So your glaucoma says that they won't let it happen. See, there's no they. I mean, there is a they, but there is no they ultimately. It's you. You are not doing anything to make it happen, but you're also saying they won't make it happen. You know, so you are the same as they, ultimately. It's the only way God can truly exist and be omnipotent, is to be one with the mind of God. So if you're both, you know, in it and of it, then there is no they. The they is you. And so if you want to go and change the world, go, you know, make your own company and rise to the top and change all of this. They will never do it, because they did that. They went and made companies and said, you know, screw these guys on YouTube. I want to build rockets and go to the moon. I don't have to share anything with them. That's actually what's happening. And there is no good and bad. There just is. Everything necessitates the other. Like, you can't, if there was only good, it's just like a great analogy is a soup. You can't have a soup without any salt. But if you oversalt the soup, it's going to suck. So everything needs salt. You can't have everything totally good and ease all suffering, and you certainly can't have like all suffering and no good, because then suffering has no context. Suffering is only in context to non-suffering. And I know that sounds like some Zen bullshit, but it's actually the truth. That's why these things exist. These constructs lie and cheat and steal and rob and kill, because they're meant to do that. And what the human race is supposed to do is to just observe and experience the world as best we can, and in the most original and interesting way that each of us can experience the universe. And then we tap out, just like trees and birds and animals and plants and bacteria. We just have a lifespan of experience. The fact that like NASA's never going to tell me what happened with the moon missions, I could give a shit ultimately. if I'm being honest. It's fun to speculate, but it means nothing. Alright, I'm going to start winding it down over here. I'm pretty tired and I got work tomorrow, so 3:48 a.m. Getting off on the rants, I love it, but more tunes and some Island Dream. everybody. Thanks so much. Have a great week. I'll catch you on the next moon cycle, or maybe for some Saturn and Jupiter real soon. Be well, be kind, and be wise. Eat all your fish. Eat all your fish. Happy birthday again, Sully's. I'll catch you soon. Happy Honey, Big Bear, Diego, Vorax, Copper Tropicals, Starlight Spectrum. Who else? I know Z Proxy was here, and True Man Zoo, and Glaucoma, and Tom, and Leslie, and there was Chow Young Cat, and a bunch of people. Thank you so much, everybody. Good night. Peace.
Insane and you want for relief. Maybe one day someday I have made it the way of somebody someday, but we'll get the slip. Here in space now we come in peace, seeing things that you cannot believe. Ready to trip on the drift, we can live to do, cause I love to give you. We are the space race, we are the moonwalk, we are the franchise, we are the sequel, they are the ether, how are we still here?